In March 2018, we opened our doors to the public with a vision not just to create challenging professional theatre, but to use this as a platform to inspire and bring communities together. Theatre and culture build identity. With theatre and culture in our local life, the community landscape is more vibrant. Local life is enriched. We believe that the benefits of theatre should be available for everyone. Our Theatre for All programme has removed financial barriers, giving disadvantaged people access to the theatre free of charge.
So we were told that we'd come here and have a Christmas meal and then go and watch A Christmas Carol.
Our aim is to make live professional theatre available to everyone and use that experience for positive change. Theatre can be transformational in young lives. Our academy is now in its 4th year, and we continue to build on our vision of bringing the best performing arts tuition to the heart of the Cotswolds. We work hard to make our academy as inclusive and as accessible as possible. Discounts apply for parents with more than one child. Our bursaries help support talented children from less affluent backgrounds. The Academy creates a fun and challenging environment where children can build friendships and develop key skills not just for theatre, but for life. We are also able to provide real opportunities for students who wish to pursue careers in the arts.
My name is Harry Apps. I am currently playing Marius in Les Miserables in the West End.
Barn outreach and learning programs engage with thousands of people. Our free workshops support the drama curriculum in local schools. Singing and musical theatre workshops in community groups and care homes have helped address issues of isolation. Our Song for Cirencester project in aid of mental health charities brought our community together in an unprecedented way. We've collaborated with many charities in the region, including the Churn Project, to support individuals dealing with the barriers to finding work.
Since working with UAN, my life's changed. It's given me some purpose, given me an interest, some confidence I was lacking prior to all this.
The Barn Theatre played a pivotal role in the town's 2018 World War I centenary celebrations. Who could forget our record-breaking Human Poppy? Our live streaming work on the annual Advent Festival helped thousands engage and take part in Cirencester's Christmas festivities.
front.
In these times of uncertainty, we strive to keep the community together. The theatre may be temporarily closed, but our commitment to you goes on. Even now, our amazing costume department are helping the NHS by making scrubs for frontline workers. We've used our technology to build a free live streaming service that provides much needed community news and entertainment for all the family, broadcasting every day to keep us all connected. We are not just a theatre. We are the Barn.
So, thank you for joining me today for my 9th virtual COVID Q&A session. The theme of today's session will be on food and farming, and I am joined this week by a panel of industry experts from across the Cotswolds. So my particular thanks to Harry Ackland from Knott Grove Farms, Alf Bryant, who is one of the group secretaries for the NFU in the North Cotswolds, Martin Haynes, who's with us here in the studio from Chipping Campden, Patrick Bourne from Cackleby Farm in Stow-on-the-Wold. And finally, but by no means least, the Reverend John Birchall of Cotswold Farm. Today we will be discussing the impact this period has had on food and farming and their businesses, looking ahead to the next stage of the lockdown easing and considering the long-term implications. And I hope that one of the positive things to come out of this period will be a far closer relationship between British farmers and our supermarkets, and a better understanding from consumers on fresh, high-quality UK-produced food. So before we start the discussion, I'll give a brief update on the government's latest Westminster announcements. This week, the government announced the plan to rebuild the UK government's COVID-19 recovery strategy. The government's objective is to return to our way of life as soon as possible, focusing on not just saving lives, but also livelihoods. It is absolutely vital that as we do so, we avoid the risk of a second peak that overwhelms the NHS. But importantly, doesn't waste the huge sacrifice that the British people have made during the lockdown to get this virus under control. From this week, the people of England can spend longer outdoors, visiting garden centres, and all those who cannot work from home are now encouraged to go back to work as part of the first step. There is a coronavirus outbreak Q&A on the government's website. It tells you precisely what you can and can't do. The COVID alert level will be determined primarily by the R, the rate of infection, and the number of coronavirus cases. In turn, that COVID alert will determine the level of social distancing measures that need to be in place. The lower the level of the measures, the higher the level, the stricter the measures need to be. So beating the coronavirus will take months, not weeks. This is why, as we ease the restrictions, everyone must stay alert, think how to look after themselves and look after others. Because if not, the government will have no choice but to reimpose the lockdown again, and we will be back at square one. I would particularly have a message for those thinking about coming to the Cotswolds. Think very carefully what you're going to do when you come from long distances into the Cotswolds, because many of the facilities and the car parks will be closed. So if you're coming, come only to walk in the countryside or on a purposeful engagement like playing golf. The Chancellor extended coronavirus, the job retention scheme, until the end of October, giving workers and businesses the certainty that they need, that the government will continue to support them. The Housing Secretary has announced that a plan to restart the housing market in England, allowing anyone to move home safely while getting the vital construction industry moving again. From the 13th of May, anyone in England can move home if they follow strictly the new guidance published by the Housing Secretary. On dairy farmers, I've worked very hard with colleagues to get them a little extra support for those who are really suffering due to the excess milk because of the fall in the demand from the hospitality sector. Last week, the government announced a new hardship fund for those dairy farmers to claim up to £10,000, covering 70% of their lost income during April and May. Supermarkets have done a fantastic job, and their staff have generally been doing a really hard work and difficult work during the period, and have led the way on how businesses can remain open while policing the government's social distancing measures. And a whole range of businesses could learn from this how to operate safely and employ social distancing guidelines as we move into the next phase of the lockdown, including opening of garden centres and a whole range of other food activities. Now, this period has highlighted the importance of British farmers, with Waitrose, Aldi and Lidl actively supporting UK farmers. And I feel more could perhaps have been done by some of the other supermarkets, such as Sainsbury's, Tesco's and Asda. We all witnessed the panic buying at the beginning of the COVID period, and it proved to be unnecessary, as the supermarkets have worked incredibly hard to keep stocks up and massively increasing their delivery capacity and the supply chain's capacity, and adapted the way they operate to maintain the safety of shoppers and staff. As a result of the initial panic buying, there may be many people who now have enough toilet rolls to see them through not only to this Christmas, but probably the following one in 2021 as well. And finally, the volunteering and food boxes. Food deliveries for the elderly and vulnerable people unable to leave their homes have helped support them during this exceptionally challenging period for them. Over 1 million food boxes have now been delivered in England by wholesalers to the shielding groups who have asked for help with food, with hundreds of thousands of more to follow in the coming weeks. The government have also arranged priority access to supermarket deliveries for those who have said they need it. This would not have been possible without the exceptional volunteering effort that we've seen in the last couple of months, with hundreds of thousands of people signing up to help both the NHS responders and local organisations. Particularly in Gloucestershire, we have the Help Hub, who have been fantastic at liaising with a large number of local volunteering groups to meet the needs of the shielded and vulnerable during this period. I have been helping with the deliveries for the Long Table in Cirencester, who are particularly well organised. This period has brought so many people together, and it is this generosity of spirit that we hope will continue long after long lockdown. I pay great tribute to all those volunteers who have been so generous with their time. Thank you all, and let's hope that once this whole coronavirus is beaten, we can keep that community spirit going forevermore. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a really important session because it deals with how our farmers in a variety of different businesses throughout the Cotswolds actually deliver their produce to us to eat on our plate. And that's really what it's all about, because if our Cotswold farmers can produce good quality produce, it means that the supermarkets are stocked and then we can go in and buy that food. So I am delighted to be joined by a group of very talented people here today who should be able to give you some great insight into that subject. And in the studio with me, I have Martin Haynes from W.R. Haynes of Chipping Camden. I also have on Zoom video Harry Ackland from Knotgrove Farms. I have Alf Brandt, who's the Group Secretary of the NFU Mutual in the North Cotswolds. I have Patrick Bourne from Cacklebury Farm in Stowe. And finally, and by no means least, the Reverend John Birchall, who has a dairy farm just up the road from here at Cotswold Farm. So perhaps I can start with an opener to you, Martin, and just give us a little bit of a flavour about your business, what you actually do.
Fine. I farm with my brother William. We farm in the UK just over 3,000 acres, growing vegetables, brassicas, legumes and cucurbics. We supply all the major multiples, and we also have a farm in Spain, and we also have growers in Africa growing crops for us. So we are supplying all the way through the year.
There we are, a truly international vegetable business from the Cotswolds. Harry Ackland, you have obviously an estate in the North Cotswolds, but you've diversified a bit. Would you like to tell our listeners all about what you do?
We're 1,500 acres. We are heavily diversified. We only get a third of our income comes from arable farming. We used to have dairy and beef, but that obviously went with TB. We now have holiday cottages. We have camping pods and safari tents. And we also have 2 livery yards and dog kennels as well, plus various residential lets. So basically the way the farm works, a third of the income is from farming, a third is from the holiday, and a third is from other commercial and residential lets.
Thank you, Harry. And we also have with us Patrick Bourne. Patrick and his wife very kindly invited me to their amazing business at the bottom of the Stowe Hill. But Patrick, over to you to tell our listeners what you do.
So we produce breed rare breed eggs, and we supply them kind of supermarkets and high-end stores, and also top chefs all over the country.
And you have an amazing ability to be able to have different breeds of chickens which produce different coloured eggs, I seem to remember. How does that all work? What's the demand for different coloured eggs?
Yeah, we have our own hatchery here and our own breeding stock, and we basically have pure Morans, leg bars, different colours.
And that's
we do a kind of mixed box of different.
And that's what appeals to the likes of Harrods and Fortnum and Mason, to whom you sell.
And also we basically have a very ethical business, so we only have very small sheds. We only have about 900 birds in each shed, so they're all mobile, and it's kind of the way it should be done, I suppose, really. Yes,
environmentally friendly. Thank you very much, Patrick. And then Reverend John, you got in touch with me over very sad circumstances. Would you like to explain what you actually do?
Yes, I'm currently a vicar in the Church of England on the sort of southwest of London. And so I've been here for the last 12 years. Last 8 weeks, we've been in lockdown here. But my family home is in the Cotswolds. We have 750 acres where we farm mostly dairy there, but there's some steep banks and rough grazing and woodland as well. So we've been putting our energy into a dairy herd there for the last 60 years or so, and facing the challenges, as many have, with TB, and now most recently with the changes in the market with the supplier that we were going to. So we're still seeking to do dairy, but it's a real challenge at the moment.
So, Alf, on behalf of the NFU, you have members in these sectors and in other sectors of farming and food production. Just tell us very briefly how very difficult it has been for some of them during this coronavirus period.
I'm the Group Secretary for the National Farmers Union in Moreton in Marsh. I represent about 250 farming members in the North Cotswolds. The whole NFU team has been working incredibly hard over the last couple of months dealing with the coronavirus outbreak and the catastrophic effect it's had on all our farmers' businesses. I've been doing this job 25 years, and never in that time has a situation occurred where every sector of the farming has been affected by the virus outbreak, and it's having major effects on their businesses and farmers' mental well-being as well.
Thank you for that, Alf. Now, I suppose most businesses have suffered during the coronavirus, and particularly food businesses, agricultural businesses, but those like yours, John, that have got livestock, I think have been particularly affected in a very emotional and difficult way. Would you just like to tell us what your family have been going through in the last few weeks?
Yes, I think the picture for us is that our dairy supplier has lost 40% of their market through the food sector industry. So schools, coffee shops, and other parts of that, airline industries, all that sort of sector is closed down. So they lost 40% of their market straight away. And that's obviously had a major impact on price for us, but also how much we're able to supply. So pretty uncertain times for the next few months at least. And I think we had to pour away 2 days supply. That happens in the winter occasionally when the tanker can't get there. It was pretty frustrating that we lost those, but others have faced the same. I guess the challenge is just on top of the normal pressures of dairy farming with TB and other things, here's another one which has just made it even more difficult. And I guess in the future we're going to try and see how we can be thinking about perhaps more local supply, more direct supply to local people. But that's obviously a big question for the future that we can't get into yet. So that's something of our challenge at the moment.
So you contacted me, you told me that your business was in dire trouble and that you might not survive and you might have to consider slaughtering some of your cows. I then worked with the Secretary of State and we've got this hardship scheme in place. How much of a help is that, or is it not sufficient?
Well, I think we've yet to see the detail of that, and it has to, I think, as I understand it at the moment, to qualify for it, up to £10,000, we have to prove that our income has gone down by 25% in the April and May. So we don't have those figures yet, nor do we have the actual details of how to apply for it. And the time will tell whether we're able to apply for that or not. We have certainly reduced our supply as much as we can, feeding a bit less, drying off some of the cows and culling some too. But equally, we need to be ready to come back on stream if the prices come back up again. And so we need to keep going to enable that to happen. We're in TB lockdown at the moment as well. So we're on a situation where we can't actually replace the cattle that we've lost through TB. So it's challenges from every direction really at the moment. So yes, the long term, well, not long term, but the medium term, we're uncertain about. But there's not a lot we can do right now in the next couple of months except for keep going. But we're certainly looking at the options that we've got.
So all of your businesses have been affected. Martin, tell us how your business has been affected.
At the very beginning, and I think because we're in the fresh produce industry and we're used to moving very quickly, the panic buying meant that we were shifting product at treble the amount we would normally be selling in a week. A lot of that at that time of year in March is coming from abroad. So working with our colleagues and our teams in Spain and Africa, we managed to fulfill all our orders. Our worry was that people were buying too much, and I worry was some of it thrown away at the end, or have people learnt how to freeze things. I'm also told that a lot of the fridge companies and freezer companies were selling online lots of fridges and freezers, so whether people stocked up and put it away or whether it was lost. Now the market has come down and it's back to normal to some extent, but obviously, like all businesses, we've lost that food service side of our business where we were supplying caterers, hotels, but that has been offset by the supermarkets having a greater demand. Our big worry at the moment now is as we go into the UK season, when we're harvesting our own British crops, whether we are going to have enough staff. As a business, we have about 50, 60 permanent staff, and 90% of those are Eastern European and have been with us many, many years. But from about the 1st of June, we go up to 250 staff harvesting. I have a long list of people who are promising that they're coming, either from abroad or from the UK. We're quite happy to employ anybody if they fit into the category. I was talking to colleagues this morning, how were they doing with like the Pick for Britain campaign, and you can go to Concordia or with Proforce, Tom Jobs. So there has been British people coming into the workforce to help harvest. At the moment now, with the lockdown being eased, some of those are returning to their normal job. So it's a worry, is there going to be enough people to help us harvest all our crops across the whole of Britain, not just me?
Well, congratulations on your flexibility. It's obviously a complex business, but you've obviously reacted to the coronavirus commendably well, so thank you for that. Patrick, your hens don't stop laying. Tell us the effect on your business.
So if we can go back in time, on the Monday, Johnson said we shouldn't go to pubs. We lost 45% of our business. And then on the Wednesday, we'd lost 90% of our business within 3 days. All the restaurants closed down. Everyone said they stopped their standing orders. The vegetable companies we supply went from, I don't know, used to buy, maybe someone would buy 250 boxes down to 10. And so it was a bit of a nightmare. So our whole business kind of swapped over from basically doing trade eggs to pre-packed eggs. So we now do 90% of our eggs go out as pre-packed eggs. And we've had some kind of luck as well. We've had a supermarket chain too come along because they knew about our eggs anyway through another kind of avenue, and they've signed us up. So that kind of solves the problem. So kind of luck really as well, I suppose, to be honest with you, that kept us going. But at the time, we didn't know what to do.
So you're finding other markets in this pre-packed market to supermarkets. Yeah. How will you continue to supply that chain when your other chain, the retailers, the hotels at the high end, the sort of Fortnum and Masons and Harrods of this world, come back online? How will you be able to supply them as well as supplying your pre-packed trade?
I think some of the pre-packed trades will go. So a lot of the veg companies are doing box schemes at the moment, especially in London. A couple of places that we supply do a lot of box schemes. They probably do about 300 boxes a night. I don't think that that's going to carry on, and especially in the last week or so, some of the box schemes, where they were doing 400 boxes now because of Cardo and because of that type of supermarket like Waitrose have now got their acts together. They've now dropped back down to 100 boxes a night, so those companies have had to furlough those people that work for them, and they've gone down to every other night, whereas it was 7 days a week. So it's kind of switched over, especially this week has been a really difficult week. We did have to throw some eggs away at the beginning of the week. At the end of the day in business, it's best just to get it out of the way and then it's done, and forget about it. But by the end of this week now, we're now going to be starting with a supermarket, a good supermarket, and also with a Cardo, which means people are asking for our eggs all over the country. And because of the way things have stopped, especially with the vegetable companies, we used to supply one in Yorkshire, one in Lincolnshire, all over the place, and now those people aren't buying them anymore. It means that these people, we're pushing them towards that type of company. Also, a friend of mine, he owns Neal's Yard Dairies, which obviously has been with Jamie Oliver promoting the cheese problems in this country as well. The fact it's not just eggs and milk, it's also cheese that's being produced has had a problem, and because of the box he does with the cheese, it's enabled us to sell our eggs as well. So I think working with a lot of different people, people become your friends. It's a bit like a war situation, and everyone pulls together, and we're all there to help each other. And that's kind of basically saved our business.
Well, I think what you've proved is that the agricultural industry is always very adaptable to different situations. So again, well done to you. Harry, you were explaining at the beginning how actually only a third of your income comes purely from agriculture. Tell us about your diversified tourist trade. What has happened to all of that?
Well, our busiest season is obviously the holiday season, which we're open all year round for the holiday barns and the pods. And we do one-day lets in the pods in the winter to try to create that demand in the winter. It's hard work. And we had a good winter for it. Our main market also groups. The barns can sleep up to 30 each, and that's a very successful market for us. Obviously, when C-19 hit, it was coming into the busiest time of season for March, going on to now March, April, May, June is the best time of the season that we've got. We have had to completely close down now, obviously, the camping pods and the tents and the barns. We are all ready to open up. We've got new policies that we can personally think that we could run within all restrictions. We're, say, 1,500 acres. We've only got 8 camping pods and 5 tents. They're in an acre each. They've got plenty of space around them, but we're not allowed to, so that's it. So our holiday income this year will be severely hit. An idea on labour, we employ 1 person on the farm and we employ 11 on the holiday side. So that gives you the balance of employment and the impact it'll have. So far, we've managed to keep our sort of full-time people on, but we've got no part-timers. So on the holiday side, we're down to sort of 2 people when it comes down to it. And my maintenance guys, we've just been catching up on a lot of maintenance. The longer it goes on, the harder it gets to find jobs for everybody to do when it comes down to it. We were hoping we'd be open in May. That hasn't happened. We were hoping in June. There's certain uncertainty about that. If it's going to be July, we'll wait and see what happens, really. It's in the lap of the gods. We are very lucky that we've got other sources of income, such the farm, the arable side, that hasn't been badly hit as the livestock farmers. The other side on the livery yard, that's actually been okay so far. People are still keeping their horses there, and the dog kennels, they seem to be ticking over with other business. So we've been fortunate on that point of view. But the holiday business, we're coming up to the busiest time. We'll just wait and see, really.
And Harry, I mean, obviously you don't quite know when you're able to start, but you're hinting there that you're hoping you're going to be able to start in July, so you might catch some of the summer season. Do you think that with the pressure of the coronavirus situation, I mean, the last thing most people are going to want to do is go on an aeroplane. So actually their sort of staycations maybe more in the UK. Do you think towards the latter end of the year, your business might actually develop better than it does normally?
We're very buoyant, very optimistic for next year. Geoffrey, to be blunt about it, my main concern is our darling press. The kiddies are going to go back to school sometime in June. We all know when we had kids, as soon as the kids go back, they get a cold. And our press will be saying, oh, my God, all the kids have got C-19, they're all going to die, etc., etc. We are looking at letting our barns actually longer term to get us over, because my one fear is that we're going to have another lockdown in November, December, over the Christmas period. And we're going to go back to square one again, although actually, personally, I don't think it'll be COVID-19. I think it'll be something else. It'll be a common cold that everybody will be terrified about by our vast over-reporting we have. That seems to affect us with so many things nowadays, whether it be the dreaded Brexit or this. So we're looking to sort of cover our backstop at the moment just to maintain my core staff and go to sort of, there's a big demand of people ironically want to get out of cities and to do 1 month, 2 month lets. So we think we're probably going to do that, possibly on the barns, which are mainly groups, and we'll hope that the pods and tents, as you say, I think we will get demand for those in July. Bear in mind the tents close in September because it's not very nice staying in a tent, albeit they have heating in them for over the year. The camping pods, we'll wait and see what happens. But I am very, very optimistic in the long term. I think it'll be good. But it's keeping things going in the short term that's the most important, that keeping your staff in place. Although I don't think staffing will be a problem because there's going to be so many unemployed that we'll find it very easy to re-recruit. That's being a little bit raw about it, I'm afraid, but I think that's the situation.
I think we'd all say amen to your comments about the media. I think they've been incessantly negative about everything. Why can't we talk this country up and some of our successful businesses up instead of running everybody down all the time? So I absolutely echo your remarks on that. Alf, you presumably have a very difficult job to do. Your members are facing difficulties. They will face difficulties going forward. What do you expect to be doing in the next sort of few months to help them get out of this difficult period?
Well, as I said, every sector has been affected, and we've heard about vegetables, we've heard about tourism and egg production and dairy in particular. The lamb prices, they have been severely reduced because of closure of the European market. But although that's opening up a bit now, the price has improved marginally. Beef prices started to pick up in January after they've been at an all-time low for the last 2 years. But that improvement in price from January soon disappeared as the public tend to be buying cheaper cuts of meat, not the prime cuts. Arable farmers, they're going to feel the effect in the longer term because the demand for malting barley, which produces beer, will drop owing to the closure of pubs and restaurants. Pubs and restaurants take about half the beer that's produced. So that means that the malting barley is probably going to end up going for feed, which is sold at a lower price. Poultry meat, the retail sector has been strong, but sales in the wholesale and the food service sector have collapsed. Apparently 3.1 million birds are reared a week for the wholesale and food service sector, 2 million of which are taken by McDonald's, KFC and Nando's. So obviously all that's completely closed and has been for the last 7 weeks and still not there now. So I think really over the next few months, the NFU is going to be really lobbying supermarkets. Some supermarkets are better than others. For example, Morrison's, they have really embraced British meat and produce, and are using that as a good marketing tool for themselves. Waitrose are good as well, but some of them are just looking for the cheapest they can get and importing meat from Ireland and Poland when there's a plentiful supply of excellent quality meat in the UK, in England. So really, the NFU is going to be really working with supermarkets, lobbying supermarkets, and we're going to have to get the public to realise that actually the UK farmers produce good quality food, and really they should be supporting English beef, lamb, and all the other produce.
And of course, we were dealing with the Agriculture Bill in the House of Commons yesterday, and I am concerned that we make sure that our food security is, this period, if it's taught us nothing else, has taught us that we need to produce as much produce in the UK as we can. And I think that's something that we will be focusing on over the months and years to come in terms of agriculture. So well done on what you do. John, keeping the sort of Harry's theme of positivity, assuming you can get through this period, one assumes that when the hospitality sector, the pubs, the hotels, the restaurants start opening up, they'll need your milk again. What sort of plans have you got for the future?
I think I said at the beginning, we plan to move from London back to the Cotswolds later on in July, if all allows that to happen. And within that, we're trying to think, how can we continue to do farming dairy in a way that is as environmentally positive and friendly as possible, but also how can we potentially think about more local marketing as well. That's obviously a new area to step into for us. Others have done plenty of that already. But we're trying to think how dairy works well on our farm. Our farm is suitable for that, but it just hasn't been really profitable in the last 2 years. And we've survived on some diversification into livery, and a very good venture that's been set up for that. And so we've just got to really scratch our heads hard and work out, does the milk price actually justify continued investment in it for us? And that's an uncertain one for us for the moment. Slightly ironic that from a situation here in West London where we have our supplier is producing milk to our local school and our local corner shops, and yet we're not sure whether that's going to be sustainable for us long term, but we'll need to wait and see.
So my family has a branch in Ireland, and they produce a lot of specialist cheese, and they use a lot of different local farmers' milk. Do you think that's a possible way forward for you to find niche markets, special local products, cheeses, yogurts, whatever? Is that a possibility for you?
Yeah, we're certainly looking at that, and farm sales of milk as well. So all those are possibles. I'd love to be able to connect in more with the local community. I think that is something that we'd really like to explore, particularly as the village put up with us carting our muck through the village. It'd be great to be able to support them with fresh, local, good quality milk. Yeah, we'd love to do that.
And Patrick, you're a very entrepreneurial individual, but I'm sure you've used this time to think very carefully where the future of your business is going. And you've got lots of niche products. I mean, have you any thoughts that you'd like to share with us on that?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I think the size that we are at the moment is a nice size. I think that personally myself, I've been in poultry for my whole life, and I really enjoy what I do. And I feel that at the moment, if we can survive through this, then the size that we are, if something came back and we don't push our business, is a good size to be, because at the end of the day, you know, my life is a nice life. I enjoy myself, and I'm very lucky to come from a non-farming basic background, work my way through and own my own farm. So I think for me, I think that there are new relationships. I think that, especially, I have a friend who does apple juice, Jamie, who's just started his own apple juice business in Hereford, and we're promoting his products. I feel that I'd like to become, you know, I'd like us to work more with other people, especially the guy with the dairy there. You know, we can promote his milk to people in London. We can all work together. I think that's the most important thing, and just know our limits on where our business should be. I don't think having, you know, people aspire to have a big business, but actually the best business is a normal business. You know, a business that if you can go and fill your car up or go shopping and not worry about that type of thing in life, that's good enough, I think, for anyone, especially for me. So I think, you know, once, you know, if you reach that size of a business, I think, you know, you need to stop. It's a strong business, it's a small business, it's a niche business, it's loved. And you're always going to have people that want more and more and more of it. But at the end of the day, if, you know, you can't fulfill markets. And if you get bigger and start fulfilling those markets, it puts you into a more vulnerable position if something like this comes up.
So that's quite an interesting theme, cooperation with others. You help your friend sell his apple juice, he helps you in Wales sell your eggs. Alf, I'd like to come to you. I mean, is there any sort of role for the NFU in helping small farmers? We've got 2 smaller ones and 2 bigger ones. Smaller farmers cooperate better with others?
Well, we can, because there's, the NFU has sort of 600 people like me all over the country. Locally, we can facilitate that. We can get people together and introduce people, and the NFU nationally will be looking at any, as they always do, look at any which way to give the you know, make sure their farmers are all sort of profitable and sustainable.
And what can we do to help people like John who are contracting with those in the hospitality sector to make sure that those contracts, as one of the enduring problems for dairy farmers has been the fairness of the contracts. What can the NFU do to help farmers like John with dealing with big intermediaries that he deals with to actually make sure the contracts are fairer in future?
Well, I mean, the NFU has contract checking service, and it does work with all the processors and dairies to try to ensure that the contracts are fair. And they have done a lot of work in the last few weeks with the dairies who didn't have a market, who lost their market, and with government as well. And we thank you, Sir Geoffrey, for the support you gave in setting up that grant scheme for the dairy farmers. Although there is, as John said, there is some question as to whether or not a lot of the hardest hit dairy farmers will qualify for the grants that are available. But the NFU are looking at that at the time being, at the minute.
So I'd say to both Alf and John, keep in touch with me about that, because I'm regularly in touch with George Eustace. If the scheme isn't delivering what you think it ought to, let me know where the detail is wrong, and I will certainly do what I can to try and help put it right. Martin, you run a big international business. Have you had any time to think about the future of your business? Have you got new thoughts for how your businesses might develop in future?
I think big businesses work together as much as small businesses. And I obviously talk to my colleagues growing in different areas and different crops and things. Obviously, we've been waiting to see where our labour force is going to develop before the virus came in. Yes, the government has extended the seasonal agricultural scheme, but we have relied on in the past strongly on having people from Europe, and that is going to dry up. So we've been looking at where we can invest in machinery. There is some machinery out there, but there isn't computers or robots yet that can do everything. And we've looked at which crops use the least labour and which crops use the most. So I think we were already considering what we should be growing, what we can grow within a cost structure. We're very concerned as we go in or through Brexit, is the government going to stick to the standards that we have to work to, not just for producing food in this country, but the labour standards as well, that people aren't abused, people are paid a fair wage. It's most possible to get food from outside the UK, but is it grown to the same standard? Are the people treated the same? So, and with the agricultural bill going through, the government keeps saying that we're going to keep the high standards of animal welfare and food production in this country. And all right, the Chancellor, maybe with his guilty conscience, voted the right way last night, but you're still not saying that you're going to keep the high standard of anything coming into the country will have to meet our standard. And yes. I think the public want that.
No, I agree with that. And this was a very tricky issue last night. Standards versus what we're going to be able to negotiate with the Americans, maybe, and others on free trade agreements. And this will be a very tricky issue going forward. But basically what we want to make sure is that as much British produce can be sold to high standards as possible. I want to move to Harry now in the last section of our this Q&A, and your business probably is the most closely customer-focused business. We've been talking about production by and large in this session, but actually how do we educate the consumer that they ought to be exactly as Martin has just said, considering buying high quality, well produced, well resourced, good animal welfare standards with people paid at proper rates? How do we educate the public that they ought to be supporting British businesses?
Well, Geoffrey, it's very difficult. We do supply the best. I mean, when you travel abroad, personally, I think our Airbnbs, our camping sites, are everything, despite the weather sometimes. We do have the best quality food. We have the best quality accommodation in the country, if not in the world. And I don't think there's any doubt about that. The trouble is with British people, they want the cheapest. And there is no doubt about that. That's been said time and time again. You can produce the best, but the average person who goes shopping will always go there and they will buy the cheapest. And I don't know how we can overcome that. We can always be the best, but if there's a cheap flight to Torremolinos, or you can go to Barcelona at £35, as you can easily do £35 return. Well, frankly, your average Brit will go to Barcelona for £35 rather than to come and stay one of my pods, which is only £60 a night, and drive down to Birmingham to do that because it's better weather in Barcelona, etc., whatever it might be. I'm not sure how we can overcome that. We can just keep on doing our very best and plug away at it when it comes down to it. It's harder in the food sector, as you say, where we do have extremely high welfare standards, by far and away the best in the world. And that does cost a considerable amount of money. But being blunt about it, yes, in Dalesford they're interested about it, and Cotswolds, some of the wealthy people are. The majority are not like that. The majority simply go for the cheapest. However far you educate people, you say that they go to the supermarket, they will always buy the cheapest. What has been amazing about this, I have to say, it's really connected us back with our local markets. We have our food delivered to our local village hub, the Nuttery. We have local asparagus delivered. Darren, who runs it for us, now has delivers a lot to local people. The meat is 10 times better than you get from the supermarkets. And actually, as you are cutting out a lot of the middlemen now, it's actually not that much more expensive as well. It's how we can keep that going. And that is going to be difficult, because as soon as this is lifted, people will go back to the supermarkets. It annoys me intensely, if I'm honest about it. You can go to a bloody supermarket. Why can't I be open for business? Why can't we get those coffee shops open? You can do all this social distancing stuff. Our hub is open on Friday. We've got, for takeaway burgers and takeaway beers, we've got an off license now. We can get out and do these things. We need to get out and do these things. There is absolutely no reason why we are still all in lockdown in the tourism industry. When you get people crowding on buses and on the tube and on trains, as we see numerous times, there has not been a spike of infections at all. It's this flipping press we have. It makes me livid. We should all be out there working. People can go to their local coffee bars. If you open them all up, you wouldn't get the density of people going to them. How many times have you ever been into a charity shop and you've seen more than 2 people in there when it comes down to it? How many times have you been to a Travis Perkins before the lockdown and there was normally only ever 2 or 3 people queuing for a Travis Perkins? It was politically expedient. I absolutely get that, why they had to do it.
I think
our press have got an awful lot to answer for causing complete and unnecessary panic.
Harry, thank you for that. We're beginning to run out of time. Martin had a comment.
I think what we are going to see, because we're all saying when it ends, but we don't know whether it is ever going to end. But what we have seen is the big rise in home shopping and delivery. And I'm not sure, all right, some people will go back because of maybe the extra cost. But I think that will continue. And we supply people who do box schemes and stuff. And that business has been roaring away. And I think people will stick at doing that because they've bought better quality. They found better meats and so forth.
I'm sure that's right. I don't think any of our lives are going to go quite back to where they were before the virus. Most people have learned a lot of how to do things online, and I'm sure they will continue to do that. Alf, it did strike me when Harry was talking that whether the NFU could do more working with supermarkets and others to. And when we leave the European Union, presumably we're allowed to put on our produce produced in the UK or whatever. Whether we could do more to work with the supermarkets, maybe even say produced by Haynes Chipping Camden or whatever, the individual farmer, but at least produced in the UK, so the consumer has some idea that he or she is buying produce produced in this country.
Yeah, we do. NFU does a lot of work on labelling with supermarkets, and in particular the misleading labelling that we do see on supermarket packets of meat and produce. The red tractor logo shows is a universal marking that shows it's produced the food is produced to British standard. And yeah, I think we are NFU is going to sort of start being able to, if we're allowed because of regulations, we will start using the British logo more, and we'll be pushing for that. We're also going to be pushing the supermarket to supply the more premium cuts of meat, because I think we're obviously going to end up going into recession if we're not already. So that means people are going to have already started changing their habits on what sort of meat they buy. They're buying the cheaper mince, as I've said. So we need to get the supermarkets to buy the prime cuts of meat from British farmers, to help farmers to bring the price of the finished product up to a more reasonable and a profitable level for farmers.
Thank you. John, have you got any thoughts? I mean, it was a very interesting little theme we got onto just briefly with Martin, how people are going to use online technology better, perhaps to order more food directly from the supermarkets. Do you have any thoughts in future how we could promote successful British agricultural businesses like yours in the future?
Oh, we certainly here in Surbiton have been very glad of our weekly veg box coming from one of the main weekly veg box suppliers, and have upped our intake of that to include great quality local milk as well from that veg box supplier. Again, ironic that it's not the ones that we're producing in the Cotswolds, but we're not geared up for that yet. But it'd be great to be able to do that. And I think there will be a move to more quality food. I hear what Harry's saying about people favouring the cheapest, but I think there is always that opportunity for us to say the food we're producing is brilliant quality, and whether that's unhomogenized milk, or whether it's grass-fed beef, or whether it's poultry that's got space or whatever, I think there'll be more and more an opportunity for us to market that and say that is better for our health, that's better for our land, that's better for our whole community. And I think there's a big message to push there.
Fantastic. Patrick, I was just so impressed with your business when you kindly invited me around, because not only were you producing an innovative product, you were doing some very interesting boxing and labelling and everything else. The whole of your business is presentational, which is why you've managed to sell to Fortnum & Mason and Harrods and other of these high-quality outlets. What sort of thoughts do you have as to how we might market our agricultural produce better?
I think that, like Al said, there are good standards out there. And I think one of the biggest problems is, maybe in London sometimes, is that products that are not necessarily the same are marketed as the same. So people kind of misguide the general public. And if the general public are then misguided and they buy something that's meant to be good and it isn't good, then it puts them off buying decent products in the future. And you know, with our product especially, I've seen it copied twice now, nothing the same. I've done something about it, but it's annoying, because when people are farming like all these gentlemen here properly, and especially when products are then sold as the same and they're not, it's kind of unfair, really, to be honest with you. It needs to be, I think that's the biggest thing for me. I think that needs to be policed. In farming, there's no kind of control of like mis-selling of products, really. You can call them whatever you like, put them on a shelf and people believe it, because they wouldn't know any different, because then a lot of people just take it as face value. They don't go onto the internet, they don't look at the farm or visit the farm. I suppose the only way of doing that is to have more farm visits, to show people around and be more open as farmers. And if someone does ring you up on a day and they're outside your gate, welcome them in, because that kind of shows them what you are doing. And that kind of thing, that's the way we've done our business. The more people that talk, the more people that understand. And with our cackle bean eggs, we don't adhere to any certain standard. We do what we do, and I think over time, over the last 10 years, people have now understood what our brand stands for, and we don't actually have to label it with anything.
That's a really interesting theme that I would have liked to have got onto, but time prevents me, is how we get, and I'm very keen on this, getting people out of cities onto our farms, and there must be ways of we could do that more successfully. Martin, I'm going to give you the final word. Your marketing is really first class. It has to be, for the range and freshness and fantastic produce that you produce. Have you any advice as to how we might encourage the British consumer to buy more of your British produce and more of our our other panellists British produce in future?
I think in fairness to the beloved supermarkets, we have two types of labelling. One's called generic, which means it comes from abroad, and one is the British label. And most supermarkets have somewhere on the packaging a Union Jack or something to say that it's British. And on a lot of the produce that we sell to certain supermarkets, it's got our name. People need to look at what they're buying and see. The one thing maybe when they're out, when it's all open up a bit more, when they are going to the coffee shop, is that milk that's being put in the coffee British? Is the meat in the restaurant British? Or is the vegetables British in the season and whatever? Because that's where things get very hidden and disappear. And I think we will be in a different world, and it is working together.
And I mean, a lot of the big suppliers of some food products say that, you know, please give us your feedback, whether you like what you purchase, whether you don't. Is that something that applies in your business at all or not?
Yes, we get feedback from the supermarket. It's more if there's a complaint, though luckily we don't get many of those, because we're working to standards. We're working to the government's or this country's standards, but also the supermarket's standards. So people should be getting what they're buying, should be good for them, should be wholesome food. If it's not, they should be taking it back and obviously complaining, because that feeds back through, and there may have been a problem, there may have been something that needs to be put right in the future.
Harry, I'm going to give you the last word very briefly, if you would, please, because we are out of time. How important is customer feedback to you, and in particular, reviews of your facilities, and does that help you in the future sell more of it?
Oh, it's absolutely key, Geoffrey. We're on Facebook. We have our own website. We've actually just been using this period to rewrite our entire website with a local company, which is great. With new photographer was due to come today. She's coming tomorrow instead. Marketing is what we are all about. 90% of our bookings are done online. We have a manager, Katie, who's there on the telephone, obviously all the time as well. But everything is done online when it comes down to it. We're lucky that a lot of our customers actually are English as well. You know, we are short stays. Being camping in England and pod stays, our average stay is only 2 days long. So we don't get huge amounts of foreigners actually coming here. Probably maybe 20% of our business, maybe the rest 80% is Midlands, Northern based, because we're beautifully situated in the Cotswolds. We're incredibly lucky like that. We've got beautiful countryside.
So I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off, Harry, because otherwise my producer David here will get me into trouble. But can I thank all of my panellists very, very much indeed. It's, I think, been a fascinating session. If somehow we can persuade the British consumer of the benefits of freshly produced British food, and not to go and buy the cheap articles from abroad, then I think we will have achieved something. So great success of food businesses here in the Cotswolds. Thank you all very much indeed. It's been a fascinating session. David.
Thank you, Sir Geoffrey, and thank you to our panellists. Just echoing what Sir Geoffrey has said, I thought that was the most insightful question time session that we've had so far, and long overdue. And I think we should all extend our thanks to British farmers for the sterling job they're doing. And the message is, buy local and buy British, and that's really important. So thank you to all of those panellists and all their staff for keeping us fed. We now move on to the next section of our programme today, and that is to give our viewers 2 videos that show how the end user is adapting to take advantage of the situation that now presents itself with coronavirus. What we're actually doing is going to have a quick edit on the Priory Inn in Tetbury, which has transformed its business from a hotel to a major supplier of food boxes, over 15,000 food boxes a week, and are actually making more money now than they were a hotel. And the second edit is Made by Bob's, or MMB as it's now known. And they were a restaurant in the middle of Cirencester, and they're now a supermarket. Both fascinating insights into how British entrepreneurs have actually adapted in the light of coronavirus. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome Tetbury into the live stream today. We've got two people we'd like to introduce. One is Kate Befera, who is the joint owner of the Priory Inn in Tetbury. Welcome, Kate. And the other is Councillor Kevin Painter, who is a town councillor and chairman of the Heritage and Regeneration Committee, as well as being the chairman of the Tetbury Chamber of Commerce. And so welcome to both Kevin and Kate. And we're going to hear the story of the Priory Inn, which is a really exciting initiative of how they've been dealing with coronavirus. But before we introduce Kate to answer a couple of questions, I know Kevin would quite like to make a couple of introductory remarks about the Priory and indeed Tetbury in general. So over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, David. Yes, to be perfectly honest, the Priory, what they've achieved has been absolutely amazing. Kate will tell you more about that in a moment. I was so impressed with what they've managed to achieve. Each week, they are actually adding and increasing the services that they're offering. The most amazing thing was they took the very courageous stance of opening the chip shop right in the heart of the coronavirus. And that has worked so, so well. The people of Tetbury, I can say this, are so impressed, behind you fully, and just want to say thank you to the Priory, you and your team, your staff, everybody involved. And I think that you sum up everything that's good in our town. So thank you.
Wow, that's praise indeed coming from Kevin. Right, Kate, first question. Can you tell us briefly how long you've actually been running the Priory?
Yeah, so we actually signed the contract last year. And we waited about 6 months, and we took hold of the keys on the 3rd of March this year. So obviously not knowing, what was going to happen next, really, with everything closing.
Well, not exactly perfect timing, was it?
No.
But there is good news at the end of this story. So, second question, what happened to your business following the government's announcement to create social distancing and then the closure of non-essential businesses? What was your reaction to that initially?
So obviously we haven't been able to operate as a hotel or a restaurant since lockdown began. So obviously handing back the keys wasn't an option for us at all. The local people of Tetbury have been so supportive with us. We obviously have the Greyhound, which is just down the road from here as well. So they've been supporting us for a couple of years now. So that definitely wasn't something that we were going to do.
Okay, and how do you think Tetbury businesses have been affected by the lockdown? Because obviously you're part of the Tetbury business community. Have you got a take on how other businesses have responded?
Yeah, so I mean, the majority of the businesses have had to close, but we understood it was important to partner up with the local businesses, and we have been working closely with a few of them: Hobbs House Bakery, Paul's Bakery, Jessie Smith's, and the Godsill's Cheese, and we've made a base here from the Priory, and we've been able to support the local community.
That's great. Thank you. Now that we hear that there's a bit of a success story here with the Priory and the way in which you've introduced some great new initiatives into the business and into the town, and could you share some of those with us?
Yeah, so we have transformed the Priory into a delivery base, offering a range of food boxes. We offer obviously the fruit and veg, meat, Godsill's cheese, the gluten-free box. We offered an Easter box, bread boxes, and on top of that, we've also been delivering hot pizzas, fish and chips. We've even bought a senior menu that we deliver lunch times and evenings to the seniors that are in isolation and that can't get out. We've also offered a pizza box for the children so they can build their own pizzas. And just really trying to get a feel for what everybody would like, and we do try and cater for that.
And how many boxes are you producing a week?
We are producing around 1,500 a week.
And to what sort of areas? 'Cause I gather it's not just Tetbury that you're supplying a lot of
No,
other places.
yes, we are. We're going over to Stroud, Malmesbury, Dursley, Nailsworth, Evening, Cricklade. So
Okay, so it's a widespread, totally different business model to the one that you originally bought, isn't it? So
exactly, yeah.
well, this isn't strictly a question that's on the ones that we discussed earlier, but do you see this kind of idea continuing beyond coronavirus when you can open again? Do you think you'll be able to continue to do this food box idea and this takeaway service?
Well, I think we've had such good feedback. I think it would be something that we would continue to do. I think everyone's been so impressed with the boxes, the quality of fruit and veg and everything that's been going out. If the support is there, and then we will carry on.
That's great. Okay, last question. We obviously, these live streams are in the presence of our MP, Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown, and he likes to hear, A, what businesses are doing, but also to take questions and criticisms of what central government are doing. So have you got any messages you'd like to give to our MP to take back to Westminster about how the Cotswolds is responding to coronavirus and how central government is supporting you? Have you got any thoughts on that?
I think from a business perspective, it's all about support. For instance, we're hearing of a major supermarket chain that's had a list to help support the vulnerable, which I think, that maybe could have been filtered to the councils, the local councils here. And then that maybe would have got other businesses, being able to offer that support as well to them.
Okay, that's great. So, do you think central government are doing enough to help you?
No, not at all. No, we didn't get any grants. We didn't get any grants or anything.
So that's the message back.
Our rateable value is low. Not high. Sorry.
Okay, so that's why you're excluded from the benefits from the coronavirus grants that are getting from central government. Is that right? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And I gathered from hearing that you're actually. Sorry. Is that okay? Yeah, you're okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kevin, have you got, by way of any observations from what Kate said, do you like to add anything to that, Kevin?
Well, again, I'd like to, agree with what Kate's saying there. The problem is a lot of things look good on paper, but because of where we live in the Cotswolds, we seem to be always overlooked. Everybody will tell you that we're almost like the last outpost down here in the south. Everything seems to be London and based in the north. We're always overlooked. We do have such a very good disposition and such a great community that I think it's easy to overlook the stress and hardship that does go on for the local businesses and the people that live here. I would like to just add one little tiny story. We have got a young lad. He's got a motor racing company. He's been manufacturing face masks that he's giving away free. He's done all that off of his own back, not charging for this, free. I was discussing it with him the other day, and he said the only concern he's got is obviously he's using his equipment. When it gets back to work time, what would happen if his equipment then decides to break down? There's a lot more support that could be done, and hopefully things like this, people can now start getting the information up to Westminster as to what is actually needed. I'm certainly not going to push and say my own little pieces, but I think the people of our town, this is a great forum for them to use.
Okay, that's great. And we're really pleased to have Tetbury represented on the live stream. And I know that Geoffrey is really keen to get much more involved in the Tetbury story with you as elected representatives and local businesses. So we're delighted to have you on the live stream, and we look forward to staying in touch with the success story of the Priory, and wish you both a really happy weekend. And Kate, can you just do me one favour? Can you just put the box up so we can see it? Just grab the box, okay? So that's where people need to go. Look at that. So if you're feeling hungry, you look after Cirencester as well as the neighbouring towns and villages, don't you? So we know where to get in touch. Okay. Is there an email address, or what do we need to do to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So our contact number here is you can either email us at info@thepriory, untitled.co.uk.
Online ordering system.
And there is an online ordering system online as well. Or you just give us a call here on our 01666 502 251.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks a lot to both of you. Well done, and have a great week. Have a great weekend.
And you, thank you.
Bye.
Can I put my order in now?
Hello, I'm Ethan Rogers, Exec Chef of the King's Head Hotel and MBB Brasserie, that we've now turned into MBB Social Space in Supermarkets. And I'm going to show you around. Turned our restaurant into a social distancing supermarket, stocking a whole range of products from dairy, charcuterie, some meat products from the local butcher, lots of veg products. We're also doing takeaway coffee, lots of fruit and veg, strawberries, local strawberries, asparagus, butter, eggs, especially eggs. Right at the beginning, everyone was getting mad for eggs. And then one of the things that obviously people have been struggling to get hold of is all the different bread flours. So strong white bread flour, strong granary bread flour, plain, self-raising, double Knorr pasta flour and fresh yeast. So literally we have been going through tons of the stuff over the last 6 weeks. You know, there's one guy even like sending customers our way because certain supermarkets don't have flour all the time. This is how the supermarket works. Obviously the restaurant's got three sets of doors. We're using two, so the traditional Bob's entrance, the customer comes through there, and when they're finished we'll leave through that restaurant door. We only ever have two pickers at one point, so actually the customers don't actually handle any of the products. They'll come down, we'll go through what we have, the list of items, and we'll basically pick it for them. So, i.e. an onion, some soy milk, you know, it's just, in my eyes, it was a lot more of a safer way for people to shop. And we've got the space to do it, so yeah, why not?
So since lockdown, you've been producing ready meals. What can you tell me about those?
Yeah, that's correct. Basically, before lockdown started to happen, we were obviously still trading as a restaurant and a hotel, MBB Brasserie and the King's Head. Still had stocks of meat, fish, vegetables, all of these things. So then we were told we had to shut. I didn't really want to waste all these products, and I decided to come up with a selection of ready meals that was affordable and had freezer capacity or capability, sorry. So I mean, that one, if you like, is the penne pasta with feta and basil. That one is a West Country fish pie. Both of those will feed two people, and it was just to give people more availability to, you know, chef-made ready meals, and also cut down on the wastage that I would have incurred having to shut the hotel and the restaurant.
So we're doing that. You talked there a little bit there about, obviously, you've used some of the produce from your suppliers. You're also using good local suppliers for some of the things that you stock in the brasserie or the social distancing supermarket, and of course the deli. What are those?
So I've got here, that's sourdough revolution sourdough from Lechlade. And again, these guys were stuck with a load of produce that they couldn't sell. So, you know, as much as I wanted to keep going and being able to provide a service, I still had loyalty to some of my suppliers to make sure, you know, we're still using some of their products, rather than, again, them, number one, having to furlough staff, or number two, throwing away product. Rave Coffee, Cirencester, is the same thing. You know, I've always used them since I started at the brasserie, and I just wanted to support local businesses as much as possible in these really difficult times.
So you talk about these difficult times, and one of the things that you've been stocking is obviously the veg and other items. But of course, now things are easing up slightly. You also have luxury products as well, because we have the deli here.
Yeah, so in December we opened up the deli, which is a selection of fine wines, some really good charcuterie, really good cheeses, some really high-end olive oil, some really good wines, whiskies, those sorts of things. Again, for Christmas it was to reflect the produce that I use in the hotel and in the brasserie. And it gives the customers options then to be able to buy those products over here.
You mentioned deliveries there, and of course you are going out to the villages, because not everybody can get into the centre of Cirencester at the moment, and certainly a lot of people don't want to travel into the centre of Cirencester. So you've devised a clever kind of delivery service. How does this work?
Again, reflecting on when we first done the supermarket, social distancing or social space in the supermarket came to mind. Where I live in Misden, there's only a small shop. He was really struggling, so I sort of said, look, you know, would it benefit us? Could I come up once a week? And he said, yeah, it'd be lovely to have your help, to take pressure off him so he could have a day off. So I spoke to the village hall. They said, yes, we can use their car park. And again, the whole point behind all of this was to be safe. So the client turns up in the car. We'd set out the table, not like the supermarket, they'd already pre-booked their ingredients. So we'd pack their box, drive it out to Misden, turn up at the village hall with a small table. Mrs. Bloggs will turn up in the car. We'll then put the box of goodies in the back of their car. She would have already paid for them over the phone, sanitise the door handles, and then she would have driven off. It was just one, being able to provide a service to potentially some people that can't travel that well, or some people that don't want to come into town, you know, and it was just giving back to our community. So it started at Misden, where I live. I think we're now doing a round of 11 different small villages, a couple of different days a week, again in village hall car parks, and we're all following that same system, social distancing, supermarket or shopping, if you like.
So if I was after the ready meals, if I was after the fresh fruit and veg, if I was after deli items, if I wanted to inquire about your delivery service, if I wanted one of your lovely picnics, or you know, I've heard a lot about your Sunday roast that you're doing as as sort of a takeaway option. How do I get in contact with you?
Best thing to do would be to go online, have a look at the website. Also, if you have got time to pop in the store, we are giving away the price list with the MBB Brasserie telephone number, all the website details. We're just about to go live with the e-commerce online shop, so you could potentially even do a click and we will, not quite a delivery, but again, you'd have to come down to one of the village halls, but you'd be able to order your shopping that way as well.
I hope you found those two edits interesting in terms of how we're adapting in the Cotswolds to the pressures and challenges that are faced by coronavirus. We're going to end our programme with our two reports, the report from the north and the report from the south. The report from the north is being given today by Councillor Lyndon Stowe, who's a county councillor in charge of finance, and he's going to give us an insight into garden centres. And the second report is from Councillor Richard Morgan, who has been on a potato farm, and hopefully you'll find both of those interesting. And last but by no means least, just to remind everybody that we'll be back here again in a week's time, when the theme then will be leisure and hospitality, and we look forward to seeing you in a week's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thanks to the barn, all of the team, as always, very grateful. And we'll see you at the normal time next Friday. Thank you very much indeed.
Hello and welcome to the North Cotswolds. I'm Lyndon Stowe and I'm one of the Gloucestershire County Councillors. One of my roles is that I'm in charge of finance and properties at the County Council. And included within that is something like 6,000 acres of county farms. Our tenant farmers do a great job. They grow a huge range of crops and deliver a huge range of food products. I want to say thank you to them and all the farmers out there working really hard to make sure that Britain gets fed in these really difficult times. Let's get behind them and let's support their initiatives. If they've got farm shops, let's support their farm shops, and let's all support and let's all buy local produce. One of my other jobs is I help to run our family plant nursery based in the North Cotswolds, and each year we literally grow millions of young plug plants. I'm really pleased that garden centres can now reopen. People need plants. Gardens and parks are good for people. And one of the trends we've noticed this year, more people than ever growing their own vegetables. And I think that's really important and a great thing to do if you've got that space or if you've got that allotment in these really difficult times. So my message is, please support your local farmers, support your local farm shops, support your local food producers and your local retailers. More than ever, they need your support today. Thank you.
So I'm at Home Farm on the A417 just outside of Kingscote, and it's one of the biggest potato farms in the Cotswolds. So I'm going to catch up with the owner and discuss just exactly how they've had to adjust and adapt to the coronavirus situation.
I'm Graham Nichols. I'm a farmer here at Kingscote. We came here in 1909, but we've sort of specialised more in potato growing now. It's changed a lot because farming's had to specialise. Geoffrey, we've met a lot in the past when I was chairman of Gloucestershire NFU, and thank you for the help and support you gave me then. We're living in some very peculiar times, Geoffrey. You're about the same age as me, and I never thought I would see anything like this in my lifetime. And when coronavirus hit us just before the lockdown, I mean, our potato sales went crazy. We just could not keep up with it, and we had to stop selling to the public on the door here because we just couldn't control the public coming in here, and we felt very unsafe with them here. But we were supplying some of the farm shops, and yes, it helped our business, but we would not put the price up because we didn't want to be seen to be profiteering from this terrible virus. But then as we specialised growing seed potatoes, we were trying to get all those orders out, and it was difficult because we had lorry drivers coming here that wouldn't sort of keep their distance, but eventually we got everybody educated. Moving forward, our biggest concern is where we're going to get any labour from to harvest these potatoes. We've relied very heavily on foreign labour, i.e. Romanians, Polish, and I don't know whether we'll be able to use them or be able to get hold of them. The biggest problem is you've got a lot of the country furloughed, but they don't want that sort of work, and if they're going to get 80% to stay at home, you're not really going to encourage them to come out and try and get any work. So this isn't going to happen till September, so we're just going to have to worry about that when we get there. And there's a lot of problems in the processing industry, i.e. when we had this lockdown, all the chip shops closed, McDonald's closed. There's 300,000 to 400,000 tons of potatoes that are just going to have to be dumped because nobody will buy them because that market has ceased. Although the supermarkets have gone up by 30%, their trade's increased. It's the wrong sort of potato, as you'll be well aware of. One of the big issues we've got is we've now got the Cornish new potatoes coming on board, and we're going to have an oversupply of those if we're not careful because the processing market isn't moving. So somehow we've got to try and help those people. I think we need to be aware of what's happened over in Holland, where the Dutch government have made helping the farmers out over there. And I know you've helped the dairy industry, but I do think you're going to have to start thinking about helping the potato industry as well, because some of those boys, they're suffering big time after huge investments. We're not going to have those farmers in the future if we're not careful.